you're going to begin in Upavista Konasana, and you can begin sitting up on blankets to stretch the legs out to the side, or you can just come off the blankets. And when you would use the blankets for this pose, you can have them wide like this, or you can turn them so that there is a point coming forwards. And if you are on blankets, you know, and you have this arrangement, you might need a block, yeah, for one of your hands. But I'm going to take the pose without any support and start off with your hands behind you, right? Start off with your hands behind you. Now, I always can never say enough about this pose because I think it's one of the great marvels for our time. Because in Gita's words, what it does is it settles the thighs, right? It settles the thighs. And so by that, it means that there is a space right between the inner legs, of course, which allows for a descending quality to the thighs. And that means that if it's hard for you to sit straight upwards when you're on the floor, then it would be better to sit up on blankets. But you're going to make an adjustment here to turn the inner parts of the thighs down all the way at the groin so that you can lean to one side and then turn downwards, and then you can lean to the other side so that you have a descending quality to the inner sides of the groins. That's it. And then you can bring your hands behind. Now there also is, as the inner groins go down, there is also a descending, as I said, to the thighs. So as you stretch your heels away, can you also lengthen through the backs of your legs and press the fronts of your thighs downwards? And see if you can start to remove some of the space between the floor and the backs of your legs if you're on the floor. If you're up on blankets, of course, that's not going to be available to you. So you will just continue to work to extend your legs. And we're going to be here just for a few minutes. I wanted to refer to Sutra 247 and 248. 247 is Prayatna Shaitilya Ananta Samapatibhyam. And Iyengar's commentary on this is perfection in asana is achieved when the effort to perform it becomes effortless. And Rohit Mehta's translation of this is that practice, or that yoga brings you to a state of alert passivity, right? So that there is a passive nature to what you're doing, that nothing is in certain ways forced or controlled, but there is an observation that can bring you to a state of alert passivity, he says. And then the next sutra is 248, Tata Dvandva Anabhigataha, which is from then on the practitioner, the sadhaka, is undisturbed by dualities. And we could have a whole conversation, and maybe one day we will, about what that means to you, the idea of being undisturbed by dualities. But it does sort of indicate that there is an element of alert passivity that involves balance, right? The balance, the kind of elimination of trying too much or trying too little, or something that's too tight, something that's too loose. And this is a conversation we have a lot in our practice. So since you have two legs and they're doing the same thing but in different directions, bring your right hand down onto the quadricep side of your right thigh, just above the kneecap, and just push straight downwards into the floor. And it's literally just above your knee. Yeah, that's it. And then see if that doesn't give you a different kind of quality of extension to your leg. And then, of course, the back of the thigh gets a little closer to the floor. And then you want to see, when you release that, you know, can you maintain even a little bit of it? And then you can do the same thing to your left leg. You can use your right hand for support, maintain the lift of your chest, but see, as you press your thigh down, you know, one can observe the duality right before your eyes, even if you're not looking at your legs, that when we work with one leg, the other leg sort of doesn't do so much or so well. And of course, this is a symmetrical pose, or meant to be, right? So we want to see if we can, again, have this action to both of the legs. So bring your hands now to both thighs and press downwards. Don't be surprised if you have to lean a little bit forwards for this. But can you anchor downwards through the fronts of your thighs, stretching your heels away? And then see as you slowly release your hands and bring your hands behind you, stacking your shoulders directly above your hips. Can you perhaps bring yourself to that state of observing the right, observing the left, observing the left, observing the right? An effortless effort doesn't mean that in certain ways that the pose is relaxed and, I'm going to use another phrase, that there's kind of an abdication of responsibility, an abdication of watchfulness. That's not what effortlessness means, or at least effortless effort, but much more an idea again of this alert, passive state. We're going to do the chant from here, which means that as you release your hands, you want to leave your legs undisturbed, and you bring your hands together, palms together, close your eyes from top to bottom. There is a release downwards of your inner groins, your inner knees towards the floor, fronts of the thighs to the backs of the thighs, and then an ongoing lift upwards through the sides of your ribs to your side chest. Yogena chittasya padena vacham malam sharirasya chavajakena yopakarutam pravaramunina patanjalim pranjaliranatosmi abahu purushakaram Shankachakra Siddharinam Sahasrashya Samshretam Pranamami Patanjalim Hari Om. Now on your exhalation, release your head down. Bring your hands down, but bring your hands behind you once again for support. Shoulders back and broaden your collarbones, and then raise your head up with your eyes closed. And then gently open your eyes. So to refer to Gita, she says, again, this pose allows for the thighs to settle. So we're going to slowly, and I mean slowly, bring the legs closer and closer together to Dandasana. But observe, and these are her words, when the thighs start to puff upwards, when the groins start to grip, when you start to lose contact with the foundation of the pose, which is the backs of the thighs touching the floor. So you can slowly bring the legs a little closer. Right, and slowly bring the legs a little closer. And each time have that descending quality of your front thighs, extension through your inner heels, and a release of the groins right at the roots of your inner thighs downwards towards the floor. And then again, you slowly bring the legs a little closer. And eventually, when you get them maybe about hip distance apart, I know for myself, the thighs start to have this a kind of effort in them, right? That there is a puffing that starts to come. So you want to see, can you descend through your inner knees, descend through that space where you placed your hands right above your kneecaps. And then eventually, of course, the legs come together. So Dandasana, in certain ways, is a more complex pose than Upavista Konasana in terms of how we can settle the thighs or bring ourselves towards this state of Tatadvandva Anabhigataha, this where the dualities kind of cease to exist, because now you've essentially just got one leg. As you press your thighs down, can you release downwards through the inner parts of your groins, the roots of your inner thighs, taking your inner knees downwards, and then from here lift your chest up. Okay, now come on out. And that's a pose to experiment with, because you might have noticed that it changed, right? So she would say, and BK Saranga would always talk about decentralizing. When you're dealing with hip issues and back issues, it's okay to take Dandasana this wide, right? Because the classic pose, everything becomes more demanding, right? So that alertness has to increase. So we're going to take downward facing dog with this idea of width, right? Of wide legs. So you're going to start off not wider than your mat, but take your feet as wide as the edges of the sticky mat. And then you can extend your arms forwards from there. Yeah. Now with the feet as wide as the edges of the sticky mat, you might even work to hold on to the edges of your mat if you're losing some of that grip in your arms. And then go ahead and lift your knees up, lift your hips up. And now straighten your legs. Now, if you had another pair of hands, it would be just above your kneecaps and you would be pressing the center front thighs back. And then stretch your inner heels directly towards the wall behind you, even if the heels don't come down to the floor. And then don't take my word for it, but just slowly again, start to bring the legs closer together until eventually the feet come together. And just observe at what point do your thighs start to puff forwards or release or legs bend. And a lot of it's got to do with this movement of your inner groins. That right at the roots of your inner thighs, that the groins move slightly up, but more directly back towards whatever is behind you. Now take your feet wide again and see, pull the mat forwards as you straighten your arms. Now draw your groins directly back. And there might be a slight separation of the two buttock bones. And you want to see that that is an invitation in certain ways to allow for the front thighs to release to the backs of the thighs. Then the inner thighs extend straight downwards towards your inner ankles, towards your inner heels. Now again, when you bring the legs a little closer together, just observe, right? Just observe. When does it change? When does it change? There are reasons why we do poses with the legs apart. There are reasons why we do poses with the legs together. Because it's different, because it demands something else. It demands a different state of alertness. And maybe it's a little more effort, more work. That's it. All right. And then from your exhale and release and come on down. Now you're going to take a belt and a block. And we've been working this week on Supta Padangusthasana. And you're going to take the block to a wall. So you can pull the short edge of your mat to a wall. And I don't really have a wall here, but I have a pillar. And so if you have a pillar, you can easily just use a pillar. You may also use a blanket for underneath your head. But I'm going to take the block to the wall like so. And the left foot is going to be raised on the block. The heel is going to be all the way at the wall. The big toe mound is going to be all the way at the wall. And then I get to take the belt over the ball mound of the foot and stretch the leg up straight. If you do not need the belt, don't use it. You can also hold on to your big toe, okay? But if you need the belt, place it over the ball mound of your foot and stretch both of your legs straight. Okay? Take your left foot onto the block first. Yeah, that's it. Now place the ball mound of the left foot at the wall. Make sure that there's that contact. Yeah, that's it. I mean, go a little closer. The ball mound of the foot, of the left foot, and the inner heel extend directly towards the wall. And then from here, stretch your right leg up and either hold on to the big toe or you can hold onto a belt. But either way, straighten both of your legs. Now we're working the horizontal leg. As you extend into the wall, can you turn the inner part of your left thigh, knee, downwards towards the floor? And I'm starting from the bigger piece because it's easier to feel, easier to find. But eventually the groin itself has to turn downwards. And there's a sense that the left sit bone is moving down and also back to the left side. So see if you can follow that direction. And keep the big toe mound of the left foot at the wall, the inner heel stretching towards the wall. And then with your right leg, can you extend the leg straight? And just to the quadriceps side of your right kneecap, can you push away? You can use your left hand to do it. You can use your right hand to do it. But can you push the thigh away? That's it. And see that the left leg is undisturbed. Still moving your left inner groin downwards towards the floor, as if your left sit bone is moving towards the left side. And do that without bending your right leg. Pushing upwards through the inner right heel, pushing upwards through the big toe mound of your right foot. Keep going higher with the big toe mound. Keep going, Bridget. Big toe mound higher. Yes, reaching it. And see that your lower leg is undisturbed. Because Supta Padangusthasana 1 is a split or division of the inner legs. And so we want to see that both legs extend into the same capacity, right? Even though they're doing very different actions. All right, go ahead and come on down and switch sides. In between, you can bend the legs, lift the buttocks, extend the buttocks to the heels. Now, right foot all the way onto the block to the wall. Big toe mound touching the wall. Make sure that your right foot isn't turned out, right? That when you do place the foot at the wall, that the inner edge of the foot is perpendicular to the floor. That's it. And then the left foot up into the belt, or you can hold onto your big toe. So we think of Tata Dvandva and the Bigataha, then the dualities cease to exist. And that every day through our daily lives, and certainly in our yoga practice, we are presented with various obstacles in our way. And this pose presents its own set of obstacles. For some of us, if the hamstrings are tight, it's quite complex to stretch the top leg. And then when we stretch the top leg, we lose the extension of the lower leg. And simultaneously, when we extend the lower leg, we lose the extension of the top leg. So this time, slightly bend your left leg, just a little bit, the vertical leg. And see if you can fix now the understanding of your lower leg, the inner heel to the wall, the big toe mound to the wall, and then the inner knee and the inner thigh on the right side descending. And then travel up to where it's a place less known, which is all the way at the groin, and see if you can descend your inner right groin, moving your right sit bone slightly down and to the right. Slightly down and to the right. And then now can you extend your left leg and push upwards towards your inner left heel. So the inner legs extend in two opposite directions. But can you keep the lower leg undisturbed? That the movement of your right sit bone down and slightly to the right mustn't disturb the extension of your left leg, and still work to push your left thigh away, again, just below your kneecap. And I've even heard Gita say, put your thumb just above your kneecap and push away. Yes, and see if you can work to extend your inner left leg from the movement of your front thigh as it moves to the back thigh. And then from here, go ahead and release and come on all the way out. Now you're going to bend your legs now and roll over to your side. And come on up. And we're going to take a variation of Virabhadrasana 1. And we're not even going to bend the front leg. So you don't need to see my upper body, but I wanted to show, the lower body. This is where I probably should have worn my shorts. Anyway, where you can, what I would recommend is having a wall to your side. So again, I just have my pillow here, but it's easier to do this pose if you have a wall to your side. And you're going to take the legs really quite far apart, as if you were going to bend the leg to Virabhadrasana 1, but you're going to stop right in this position. And then the left hand is going to go to the inner part of the groin. Without lifting the heel, watch how I rotate and turn the inner part of the thigh, the inner groin, all the way around to the outer part, right? And then we'll, of course, do the second side, okay? So if your balance is an issue, please have a wall at your side. If you're not concerned with balance, then don't worry about it. That's it. So take your feet to the side. We're turning to the right side for Virabhadrasana 1. Yeah. So go ahead and turn your left leg in, turn your right leg out. Your left heel placed down on the floor, right leg faces whatever's in front of you. You can put your right hand on a wall for balance. Just don't put your hand in front of you today. Now take your left hand to your hamstrings, right at the back of your left thigh, and then travel all the way to the inner part of the groin, and now turn it, and then rotate it. And turn and rotate, and turn and rotate. And still keep your outer left heel pulled straight downwards onto the floor. And the left leg is straight. So you want to see, similar to how you were doing lying down on the floor, that the front of the left thigh pushes back just above your left kneecap. And you want to turn your groin more and more from the inner to the outer. And you'll notice that it has a very far-reaching effect all the way from your head all the way down to your back heel. And that when you turn the groin, it turns the left side of the waist and the ribs and the chest. And that the pose is initiated from the turn of your inner groin. And then come to the center and take your other side. That's it, turn to face forwards. And then from here, rotate and turn. And you'll turn, keeping your right heel down on the floor. Use the wall not in front of you today, but to your side. And then bring your right hand behind you to your hamstrings. And then travel all the way as close as you can get to the sit bone on the right side. Close as you can get to the groin, and turn it. And rotate it and turn it. And when you turn, you know, there is a division, as I said, of the extension of your inner legs. Your inner right thigh moves to the right knee, back to the heel. And then the inner left leg extends forwards towards your left foot. But can you turn through your groin? Can you rotate and see what does that offer you in this pose? Because it's a very small part of the body. But if you kind of raise the lens up a little bit higher, it can absorb, it changes everything from the turn of your back leg to your pelvis, even to the right side of your waist and ribs. Keep turning, keep rotating, and still pull your back heel down. All right, and then from here, come on out. Now, everybody has a belt, right? Everyone has a belt. And if you have two, I'm going to encourage you to tap two belts. You're going to loop your belt and pull it so that it's really quite a small loop. So it's maybe about this big, right? Just about this big. And you're going to be taking it eventually so that it's probably a little tighter. Now, if you have two belts, you're going to do this on both legs, because otherwise it's going to be kind of a bit of back and forth. But you see from here, when I take my belt over my left leg, it's going to go directly upwards towards the root of the thigh. And it's important that the buckle is right at the inner groin and that the tail of the belt gets to pull behind me, right? So that I'm just going to show this from here. I've got the belt right at the root of the left thigh, and then the buckle is at the center of the groin, and then I get to pull the tail side of the belt directly back behind me, okay? And so this is where the wall to your side may be of some help. So if you can just watch for a moment, we're going to be coming from this position here, where you're working with your feet apart. And then you can take the left hand, just watch for a moment, and I'm already holding on to the belt, right? It's behind me. So then from this position, when I get to turn to my first side, I get to start off by pulling the belt. So I'm initiating the movement of my back leg, the turn of my front leg, by pulling the belt. And I'm not pulling it directly back, I'm also pulling it back and round to the left side. And then I have to keep working to pull the belt all the way around to that side. And then from here, I want to see, can I maintain that as I slowly start to bend the front leg? And when I bend the front leg, this inner left groin shouldn't drop downwards, but it should continue to lift up and turn, allowing for more extension to the inner part of the leg. Okay, and then we'll come on up and take the other side. Now again, if you have two belts, you could see why that would be helpful, right? Because then you don't have to keep taking the belt on and off. But make sure, even if you do this, you know, once, if you've never done this before, and it works for you, it can be a really illuminating moment, again, of this samapatibhyam, of this idea of alert passivity. You're seeing something, and it's not that it's a particularly strong, forceful, willful action, but it's something that brings you to a state of alertness, a state of awareness. So with your feet apart, that's it. Bring your left hand onto the belt and bring it as close to the back of the thigh as you can. And then you're going to turn to your right side, but initiate the turn by pulling your belt. Yes, that's it, by pulling the belt. And one of the reasons why the wall is there is that this can throw us off balance. Yeah, that's it. Now, at the same time, your outer left heel has to bear weight on the floor. Right hand can be at the wall. And you want to keep pulling the belt slightly away towards whatever's behind you, but more to the left. But more to the left. And then can you straighten your left leg and reach your left heel away? That's it. And now start to bend your right leg. Now, I made mention of this idea of tatadvandva anabhigataha, that the dualities cease to exist. Now, what does that mean? Before that, we have to be aware of our dualities. And the two legs are representing the duality. And the two inner legs are representing that in a very specific way today. Your inner right thigh goes forwards, your inner left thigh goes back. And the inner legs split in these two opposite directions. So when you pull with your belt, lift your inner left groin upwards and stretch your left inner leg towards the heel. Can you simultaneously bend your inner right leg as much as? Not more, but not less. Just enough so that you get a balance between the extension of your back leg and the deep bend of your front leg. All right, and then from here, inhale and come on all the way up and then turn. Now take your belt onto the other side, unless you've already got one in place. And again, it's your, just as a reminder, make sure that the buckle of the belt goes right to the root of the inner leg, right to the root, and then you get to pull the belt back, right? You get to pull the belt backwards. The tail of the belt is important. Always when we work with the belts, it's the direction of the buckle and the pull that gives the belt some kind of power. Now, when you take your other side, again, initiate the turn to your second side from the movement of your right groin. Right, from the movement of your right groin. So see that the front leg stays straight for now. Use the wall for balance. Now press your outer right heel straight downwards into the floor, and can you pull and turn through your inner right groin? Keeping the back heel on the floor is important, but we want to see that when we pull the outer edge of the back heel down, that the groin doesn't drop. In fact, you want to lift it. You want to lift it. Yeah, you want to keep lifting it and pulling the belt back and also to the right side. Now extend your inner right leg to your right heel, and then simultaneously start to bend your left leg. And then there is a division. There's not more or less. One leg is in flexion, one leg is in extension. And so this pose is Supta Padangusthasana 1, right? This is the pose we were doing lying down. And as you lift upwards through your inner right groin, extend your inner right thigh to your knee, to your heel. See that the front of the right thigh doesn't drop down at all. Carolyn, if you can go a little wider, it would be better. And then your inner left thigh extends towards your inner left knee. The inner legs divide. Okay, and then from here, inhale and come on all the way up. Okay, turn. And now we're going to go back onto the floor for Supta Padangusthasana. But we're going to, and I'm only using one belt because I know most of you just have one. You're going to take the belt again over your left leg. And you're going to be working, and that's going to be the horizontal leg. Okay, so I've got the belt, the buckles at the groin, and then the tail of the belt will pull out to the side. The difference is you don't need to be at the wall, but you are going to take the block underneath the sacrum, like so. And then I get to hold onto the belt, extend the left leg, and see now, can I not only reach through the heel and straighten the leg, but see if I can just notice how close my hand is to the belt. Some of you had your hand quite far away. Make sure your hand is close to your thigh, excuse me. Keep the hand close to the thigh. So I'm going to stabilize this leg first, right, the extended leg. And then any amount, I get to bend my right leg without disturbing this, and then stretch the right leg up straight. So I've got nothing holding my right leg, except maybe my thumb just above the kneecap, right? So that the left groin really takes precedence here, and both legs extend away from each other, okay? And then you'll come down, and if you've got two belts, you can just switch sides. Otherwise, of course, you have to figure out what you're going to do with your belt on the other side. There we go, yeah. So you don't need to have your foot at the wall. If it was helpful, you can, of course. Start off with the right foot on the floor. Don't worry about the right leg just yet. But still see if you can work your left leg. Hold on to the belt, close to the thigh. Stretch your left leg out straight. Block under the sacrum. Now straighten the leg by reaching your heel away, your inner heel away. And then see if you can't work and pull the belt to the left. With the same instruction to take the inner left groin down. The block can be on the flattest position, it doesn't have to be very high. As if your left sit bone was moving to the left. Now, when we do work the groin in this way, you might notice that it settles the thigh, that the front of the left thigh will release down, move down fairly spontaneously because you're working to turn the groin in this way. So keep your left leg fully extended and then lift your right leg away from the floor. Now see, just with the lift of the leg, even with a bent leg, what happened to your left groin? Yeah, because as I look around, I see a lot of folks, as soon as you lift the right leg, the left leg bent. So bring the right foot down onto the floor. We're going to take a bit of time on each side, then you don't have to keep switching these belts. But can you, it's a strange thing, can you stabilize the left leg? Often we think of stability as something that requires tremendous force and strength. But this stability comes from certain ways of releasing action. So can you draw the left sit bone to the left as you feel that the inner left groin is moving downwards, and straighten your left leg, front thigh moving down, inner heel extends away. Now without disturbing this, now take your right leg up. And see if you can do this without bending your left leg. And you might find that your right leg has to stay bent for a while. This is exactly kind of like a Virabhadrasana 1, right? With a bent front leg or bent top leg. But see if you can put these two poses together, because they in fact are the same pose. And this sequence that I'm teaching today was straight out of a classic Gita taught. But you want to see that even though these legs are doing these two separate actions, that there is a state of duality because of that. One leg is in extension, one leg is in flexion. But can you bring yourself through this alert passivity to perhaps a glimpse of this tatadvandva anabhigataha, this place where the duality cease to exist? And if your top leg is now bent, see if you can straighten it without bending your left leg. Again, just above your kneecap, you can push away. And simply put, there is a division of your inner legs. And your top leg, of course, has to reach upwards to the big toe mound. But neither leg should be disturbed. In fact, one should increase the action of the other. Left sit bone moving down and slightly to the left. All right, and then from here, go ahead and release and bend both of your legs. If you've got two belts, you just go ahead and stretch out your right leg. Otherwise, you take the belt off and put it over your right thigh. Slowly stretch your right leg away. Have your hand close to your outer right thigh. And see if you can start with, again, this idea of settling the thigh. Settling the front of the thigh to the back of the thigh. And then notice when you start to pull the belt down and slightly to the right, moving the right sit bone slightly right, that it does in fact have a very soberizing effect on the thigh, on the right thigh. And the front of the thigh gets to settle towards the back of the thigh, and then stretch your inner heel away. Now again, this is where life gets in the way, right? We all have those places where we say, oh, I'm settled. And then a curveball comes around the corner. And the curveball in this pose is the lifting of your left leg. And this is where all of these asanas just offer wonderful vehicles and metaphors for life, right? What happens when I start to interrupt things? Can you be in a state where there is a receptivity and alert passivity rather than a reactivity? So that your right leg does not, in fact, react to the movement of your left leg, but that there is an integration between two. And the extension of your inner legs eventually happens, but that there is no duality, the duality of it's my left leg, it's my right leg, one bends, one straightens. Move your right sit bone down and to the right. Again, use the belt because it's an incredibly useful tool. Pulling down underneath the right thigh to the right side. And then when you stretch your left leg upwards, just observe, they are connected, these legs. Push the front of the left thigh back. And even in this class that I'm referring to, Gita said, put your thumb just above your kneecap and push really hard. But observe again the effect on your lower leg. Did the lower leg bend in order to straighten your top leg? Okay, and then from here, go ahead and come on down, come on out. Now, roll carefully, come on off the block, and then you can roll over to your side and come on up. Now, you can take the belts off. We're not going to use the belt, but this time instead, we're going to use the block. And again, it would be useful to have the wall to your side, because when you bring your right foot up onto the block, it's going to be helpful to have some kind of support there. Now, having said that, if you found the belt very useful for you, use it, right? But this last time, because we're adding a prop, and it's a lot of props to put into one pose, you can use your left hand, right? So that you can rotate the groin. And then once you're here, once the back heel is down and you have that Supta Padangusthasana 1 action again, you'll take your arms out and then stretch your arms upwards. And so that when you bend your right leg, there is a division of the inner legs. Inner right leg goes forwards, inner left leg goes back. But all the while, there is this lifting, turning of the groin as the outer edge of the back heel comes down. Okay, and then you can pull from your arms and then carefully come on out. Okay, so take Virabhadrasana 1 with your front foot on the block. Use the wall for support. Start off with both legs straight. If you can have your whole front foot, Leslie, up on the block. Yeah, not just the angle, but the whole foot is raised higher. Yeah, there you go. Okay. That's why I'm having you hold on to a wall, because the balance is a little tricky. Now press your outer left heel down. And then if you're using the belt, of course, the hand will come to the hamstring side, right? And then you pull around with your right hand, or left hand, excuse me. If you're just using your left fingertips, then you can use the fingertips, but really work to turn and lift the inner left groin upwards. And then plant the outer edge of your left heel onto the floor, and then start the bend. Now, Virabhadrasana 1 is not a lunge, right? It's not a lunge. And the lunge would mean that we just get carried away with the bend movement. But there is an opposite movement, and that the opposite movement shouldn't take over from the bend. That there is a bend and an extend, and that when both of these are working in this state of balance, then the torso, the spine just gets to lift up. Now stretch your arms up, that's it. And then continue to bend your legs. That's it, bend your right leg, inner right thigh pushes to the knee. But then what happens when you pull your outer left heel down? Can you keep your inner left groin rising? And then stretch your back leg straight from the quadricep, pushing to the knee, that's it. So the back of the thigh continues to open and spread, and that the inner left leg and the inner right leg are pushing strongly in these opposite directions. And the effortless effort, right? The effortless effort that Patanjali talks about is when both sides are doing their part, and that you get to balance in between, and then pull from your arms, carefully come on all the way up and out. All right, and then take your other side. Start off with both legs straight. And then reach your back heel onto the floor. Outer edge of the right heel goes down. That's it. And now before you bend your front leg, organize the movement, the lift of your inner right groin. Can you turn it? Again, if you're using the belt, you'll be taking a hand between the legs to the inner groin and then pulling around the back of the hamstring. And then if you're using your hand, you can really get hold of a little bit of flesh there and lift up and around, so that the movement in a way is if of your right sit bone moving slightly to the right. And now when you go to bend your left leg, see that you don't lose the extension of the right. And what makes it Virabhadrasana 1 and not a lunge is because you're working in these two opposite directions. And when tightness comes into the back, it's because one or other of these directions is not working so effectively. But the effortless effort comes when you go both ways. And see that the lift of your inner right groin allows for the pose to have some lightness to it, spaciousness to it. And then your arms can go up, out to the side and stretch up. If the balance is tricky, keep your arms down or at the wall. And then continue to divide. Right? Continue to divide and march, straighten your back leg. See if you can take the quadricep upwards. That's it, just above the kneecap. And I'm sure if Gita were in the room, she'd just put her thumb right there and say, straighten your back leg and stretch in these two opposite directions. And then lift your waist, ribs, chest, arms straight. And then lifting upwards through your right groin, pull from your arms and your groin, inhale and come on all the way up. All right, and then turn. And now carefully come off the block. And we're going to use the block now for Adho Mukha Svanasana and Urdhva Mukha Svanasana. So you can have the block on this kind of medium height, or you can have it a little bit higher. So you'll come in just kind of measuring. Your head may or may not reach the block, but when you come forward to Urdhva Mukha, do you see how I have the front of the pelvis on the block, and then I work with the toes flat, arms straight up and down, so that you have to be in contact with the block here, right? And then the instructions will be pretty much the same as Virabhadrasana 1. I have to lift through the groins, stretch through the inner legs, and lift the chest. And then you'll lift up and come on all the way back, okay? Now, if this floor variation is too much for you, then you must take a chair, because you can work, and we did this the other day actually, you can work with a chair, and you can get the front of the pelvis on the chair, or you can even put a blanket there, right? You can be in this position, and then you can lift up and go back. So you can use a chair, you can use a block. Extra support, you just take something more onto the chair seat, like a blanket or something, so that you can have some support for the front of your pelvis, okay? So we're gonna do just maybe 8 of these, maybe 10 of these. And Kim, you can do with the chair. That's fine. All right. Leslie, I wish I was in the room with you, because I'd be pulling those belts. Right? So everyone take Adho Mukha Svanasana. Take downward facing dog. That's it. And now imagine that you've got the belts over both thighs, right at the roots of your groins, and see if you can lift up and pull back. The sit bones don't go up in downward facing dog. They move directly towards the wall behind you. And then extend your inner thighs towards your inner heels. Now, can you transition now? Urdhva Mukha Svanasana. Urdhva Mukha Svanasana. Bring the front of the pelvis onto the block. Hands directly underneath the shoulders. Organize your feet. Toes extend back. Now press your feet down. Press your hands down. Lift the groins up. That's it. And straighten your legs. Right above your kneecaps. Lift your front thighs. And then exhale. Come back. Adho Mukha Svanasana. Now the transition from Adho Mukha to Urdhva Mukha, see if you can not bring your knees to the floor this next time. All right, so swinging all the way forward, swinging all the way forwards. You might have to come over onto the tops of the feet. Yes, there we go. All right, now stretch your toes back, press your ankles down, press your feet down. And now see, did you drop your thighs? And to lift your thighs, can you lift from your groins to lift your thighs? And now press your feet down, press your hands down, shoulders back. That's it. Lift your chest, lift your groins. And see, can you take your tailbone towards the block? And now exhale, Adho Mukha Svanasana. So we did those 2 quite slowly. Do the next 6 or next 8 quite quickly, but see if you can, again, figure out that the groins are in certain ways leading this pose. And whether you choose to do it with your toes tucked forwards or you come into more of the classic pose, can you observe that there has to be this extension of your legs? These are 2 very straight leg poses. And that if you can control the extension of your legs or the fronts of the thighs by using your groins, it can really have a really remarkable freeing action in the lower back and in the abdomen. Adho Mukha Urdhva Mukha. Adho Mukha Urdhva Mukha. And all the while, the inner legs extend. Now, both directions, right? And everyone's got the feet apart, which is fine. And then from here, when you've done with your 6 or 8, come into Adho Mukha Svanasana and just hold this position. Now, again, imagine you had those 2 belts in place and they were pulling your groins slightly up and away, sit bones ever so slightly spreading back. But then drive your inner thighs downwards towards your inner heels and stretch your inner heels way back towards the wall behind you. Way back towards the wall behind you. Adho Mukha Svanasana, everyone, when you're done. And now anchor downwards through the big toe mounds of your feet and almost have a sense that the big toe mounds are pushing slightly forwards as you stretch your inner heels back. Everyone, downward facing dog, Adho Mukha Svanasana. Now straighten through your inner legs. That's it, inner thighs to the inner knees. And imagine you had two thumbs just above your kneecaps and they were pushing into your knees to straighten your legs. All right, and then from here, exhale and come on all the way down. Okay. You have a choice now, and I don't have really anywhere to demonstrate this, but since I don't have a wall, and I'm not about to launch myself off a deck, but if you're able to take handstand, take full-on balance. If you're not taking a handstand, what I'm going to have you do is take downward facing dog with your heels at the wall. And then you're going to take Ekapada, right? So that you've got your front foot up like this. So again, it says Supta Padangusthasana 1. The inner groin is right here. So that has to rotate and turn upwards towards the ceiling, right? As you stretch both of your legs straight. And then in between, you can come down and rest, right? Otherwise, you can do full-on balance. But when you lift the leg in full-on balance, can you work again to lift from your groin, right? To lift from the groin upwards. So either Ekapada, Adho Mukha Svanasana, or full-on balance. Those of you taking Ekapada, Adho Mukha Svanasana, take your right leg up first. Right, those of you doing full-on balance, you take whatever leg, but then the next time you switch it. Now, but those of you going up into handstand, right, lead with the inner leg. When you lift the leg up, lead with the inner leg. That's it. Can you lead with the groin to go up? And now those of you in downward dog, straighten your legs, straighten your arms, and now turn your inner right groin to the ceiling and push your inner right heel away. Both legs straight, leading with the groin. That's it. Those of you taking handstand. All right, and then everyone reach up with one leg and exhale and come on all the way down. Everyone rest. Those of you doing full-on balance, if you could just watch for a moment. Again, I dare not do this just in case I miss, but when you go up into the pose, today it's not so much about being in the pose, but when you lift up, rather than lifting this way, you see, this is more like an Ardha Chandrasana kind of position. I actually have to turn the groin, right? So this part gets to lead towards the ceiling. Right, and I have to keep that lift so that the whole pose is lifted from the groin, right? Lifted from the groin. So go ahead, take your second side. Those of you doing handstand, well, everyone take the second side. Those of you taking full-on balance, see if you can kick up with your other groin. And the leg will follow, because the groin is an interesting area, because it's like a steering wheel, right? It can steer the entire body in a certain direction. And then those of you doing Adho Mukha Svanasana, both legs straight, left leg is up. Now push your inner left heel towards the ceiling and turn your inner left groin towards the ceiling. And observe again what it does to your thigh, because it allows for the quadricep muscles to hug into the femur bone. It's a huge knee stabilizer. And then those of you in full-on balance, once you're up, you press your hands down, you reach your heels up. And then everybody stretch up with one leg. Those of you coming out of handstand, exhale and come down. And you can rest in Uttanasana or with your head at the wall. And those in downward dog, you can go ahead and come on down. Yeah. All right. And then come on up and set up for Shishasana. And today, you're going to come up with both legs together. And one of the reasons is to kind of teach this groin area to be part of what lifts us up into the pose. Because if we're only really lifting from pushing with our feet and working the legs, often that's where the balance of the pose can kind of get lost. So when you're coming up legs together, you can be close to a wall. But from here, if you can just watch. Now imagine I had two belts at my groins and I was lifting upwards. Right? I'm going to release that for a moment.
right? So I lift the shoulders, but now I have to lift the groins, and now I have to keep lifting the groins. And it has a direct effect on how much I can lift my heels up to the hips. And so when I finally take the legs away from the floor, feet away from the floor, it's actually not even a jump, right? I'm lifting my groins up, right? So the whole pose lifted from that very, very small area, right? Just a little bit of that lift, right, from the roots of the thighs. Be close to a wall if you need to. Now, those of you who are not doing Shishasana, you're going to be taking Prasarita Parotanasana, right? So straight leg forward bend, keeping the feet wide to the side. And I think those of you who are doing Prasarita know the head supported variation. You can work to have your head supported on the bolster, right? And your arms extended like this. Now, taking Shishasana, make sure if you've got long sleeves that you roll your sleeves up. And again, today it's not about being in the pose, it's about getting into the pose. So press your forearms down, that's it, raise your shoulders up. And everyone in the Ardha Shishasana, so come down for a moment so that I can watch. Yep, come down, Donna. Now raise your shoulders, raise your knees. Raise your shoulders, raise your knees. Now press your forearms down, take your back ribs away from whatever is behind you, but now lift your groins up. Imagine you had 2 belts and they were pulling your groins upwards so much that your feet just floated away from the floor. See if you can have that much lift. See if you can have that much freedom. Again, the effortless effort. Because if we keep lifting up by pushing with our feet, oftentimes the pose will actually fall over. The pose will lose its balance. But if you're able to lift from the groins are really like, I had a steering wheel image before, but it's much more in certain ways like a compass point. Heels away from the wall. Those of you who use the wall, it's time. Get your heels away from the wall, Miranda. Heels off the wall, because the pose becomes very banana shaped there. Now raise your shoulders very, very high. Take the back ribs up and away from the wall. And then from here, slightly separate your heels. Slight separation of your heels. And then Kim, imagine you had 2 belts right at the roots of your groins, right? And they were being pulled back and away from each other. There you go. Yeah. Now, those of you in Shishasana, draw your front ribs in. Take the buttocks forwards away from whatever is behind you. Front ribs move back to the wall behind you. Buttocks move forwards to whatever's in front of you. But still keep your heels separated to keep your groins soft. Front ribs towards the wall, buttocks away from the wall. And an ever so slightly spreading through your buttock bones. And it's so mild, but it's still there. There is still a spaciousness in the groins. Just half a minute more. Maintain the extension of your inner legs. That is a tremendous driver to the verticality of Shishasana. But the effort comes, as you can observe, when the duality is there. When we're working on the balance, for example. But if you can catch it, the front ribs moving in and the buttocks moving into the body. Again, heels away from the wall. Those of you who've got the heels at the wall, there's no balance there. Take the heels away from the wall. And if you have a practice where you do Shishasana at the wall, it's time now to move away. Because the Tata Dvandva and the Bhigataha will not be available to you if you use the wall. You will be constantly living in duality. And it is an exhausting place to live.
because there is a huge amount of effort there. And Patanjali writes that, you know, effortless effort is when the duality ceases to exist. All right, and then from here, exhale and come on all the way down. Rest with your head on the floor. Everyone just take a break, just rest for a moment. Okay. All right, then everyone come on up, and we're going to set up for shoulder stand. So set up for Savangasana with whatever props you need. And if you're not doing, you're going to be taking Setu Bandha with a block. And there's a sort of a specific instruction for those of you who are not doing shoulder stands, because you're going to be taking a kind of similar pose to Supta Padangusthasana 1, except you're going to be doing it more in Setu Bandha. So shoulder stand, folks, you know, you can have something that looks a little like this. Just leave it out of the sun there. And then those of you who are doing Setu Bandha, and Kim, I'm actually going to have you take this. Who else other than Kim is doing, is everyone doing shoulder stand except for Kim? Yeah, okay. So Kim, what I'll have you do is similar to what we were doing way back at the beginning, except you want to see if you can take the block so it's a little bit higher. And you're going to be taking kind of like, again, this Setu Bandha with a block either on the flattest side or the medium side. But you're going to be, instead of working like we were working with the belt over this groin, right, you'll take the belt over the top foot, right, so that you're here, right, this variation. Okay, and those of you, I think you all said you were doing shoulder stand, but if you're not and you're doing Setu Bandha, then you can take the block really quite high. You can put blankets under your shoulders if you need to. And then from here, you get to take, don't use the belt, but you'll stretch one leg straight and then you'll take the other leg straight up. Okay, Ekapada Setu Bandha. So those of you who are doing shoulder stand, go ahead and go on in. If you can come up legs together, you can do that. Roll onto the tops of your shoulders. And now stretch your legs straight up. Now we're going to take Ekapada. And we'll start off with the left leg lifted, left leg raised. And then you'll take your right leg down just to 90 degrees, or if you're using a chair, you can take the right leg to a chair. And, you know, we find ourselves following the movement of the pose rather than the stability of the pose. And so what I mean by that is that we notice that when we take the right leg down, what did your left leg do? And it's just an observation. For some of us, the left leg moves behind us, almost like a counterbalance. And then for some of us, actually, the right leg bends a little bit. So now go ahead and take your right leg up again and roll onto the tops of your shoulders. Bring your hands a little closer down towards the back ribs. And then now stretch your right leg up. And then take the left leg down onto the chair or to 90 degrees. But again, watch what happens. Where does the pose follow? Does the pose follow the forward bending leg and the buttocks move back? Does the top leg, thigh swing way back behind you? Because if any of these variations, and there are more of them as well, are happening, then there is a state of duality happening between the legs. Legs are obviously duality. There are two of them. So go ahead and now stretch both legs up again into Savangasana. Roll onto the tops of your shoulders. Bring your hands further down your back. Now the real anchor, of course, has to be in your upper arms. So press them down. And now move your buttocks away from whatever is behind you and stretch your left leg up. Now, your left leg is the horizontal leg in Supta Padangusthasana 1. It is the back leg in Virabhadrasana 1. It is the lifting leg when you flew up into Ekapada, Adho Mukha Svanasana, or into handstand. So focus on your left leg. Again, take the quadricep in just above your kneecap. Don't worry about the right leg. Just do the left leg. Have them next to each other, but focus on the left. And then can you move your inner left groin back as if you had a belt over your left inner thigh and you were pulling it left. And then stretch the left leg up straight and keep it extending. And again, leave it undisturbed when you take your right leg down so that it shouldn't move back. It shouldn't move forwards. It shouldn't bend. And that the effect will be felt on your right leg because it will have to change. And when I say change, the right leg will descend to a capacity that wherever it can go to without disturbing your left leg. And then you want to imagine that I've got hold of your left heel and I'm pulling it upwards towards the ceiling. Now with the right leg, just above your kneecap, can you engage there? And have a sense that both of your inner legs are dividing, two opposite directions. Now stay with me for the next few breaths. In a moment, you're going to take your right leg up. But before you do that, prepare your left leg. It shouldn't swing backwards. It shouldn't swing forwards. It should stay exactly where it is as you lift your right leg up to meet it. There we go. Because even one leg can be in a state of duality. Because if the left leg was to swing forwards or swing backwards, there we are. Well, again, we're stuck in duality. But if you can maintain the verticality, then the top leg is in this state of effortless effort. Not moving back, not being pushed forwards, just straight in the middle. Now take your right leg up and reach it higher. Keep the left leg next to it. Don't take the left leg down yet. Left leg is almost irrelevant. The only reason, again, why we use the left leg is because that's just like life. When we think we've got it all set, then a curveball gets thrown at us. And the curveball is the other leg. So see if you can stabilize your top leg as if you had the belt. And again, it was moving your right sit bone slightly right, releasing your right groin. And then engaging just above your kneecap. I say above to the quadricep side. Now, can you keep your top leg in a state of Tata Dvandva Anabhigataha, where the duality ceases to exist when you take your other leg down? Inner leg split to opposite directions. Watch that your top leg doesn't move forwards. Watch that it doesn't move back. And the lower leg will change in its nature. It will become more alert. Because it's so easy to get caught up in the movement and just forget about the moment by moment. Your lower leg extends again, and the just above your kneecap will engage, and your inner legs extend away from each other evenly, equally. Now, when you go to take your top leg up, your lower leg up, can you just observe, right? Observe how does that happen for you? Does the top leg swing backwards? Does it swing forwards? Can you keep it in a state where it is responsive, that there's no reactivity? And I think I was speaking about that the other week of the Sanskrit word we call sattva, right? Which is meant to be kind of equanimity and balance. And one of the most beautiful translations of sattva is to be responsive to, right? To be responsive, not reactive. And we're going to take it one more time. So stretch your left leg up. Left leg again is your top leg in Shishasana. It is your back leg in Virabhadrasana 1. Now you get to take your right leg down wherever it goes, wherever it goes. And just for today, bend your right leg a little bit. Just bend it a little bit, just a little. And then see, does that change your ability to extend your top leg up? Watch that the hips don't move back, Irene. And then from here, once you have your top leg extended, inner left groin moving back towards whatever is behind you, then see, okay, now I'm going to straighten my right leg and see, can this be a responsive action? Right? Effortless, not in terms of there's no work, but effortless in that there is a responsive quality to the pose, not a reactive quality to the pose. Lower your top leg is a little back, a little back. That's it. Now, when you take your top leg, your lower leg up, see that it doesn't disturb your top leg. And for sometimes, the top leg will come down to meet it. Like a long lost friend. But we've got to say, no, you know what? It's worth waiting for. It's worth waiting for the embrace of the two legs together. And now, second side. So reach your right leg up, pushing upwards through the inner heel. Inner leg extends. Again, the movement of the left leg is the easy part. But the tata dvandva anabhigataha of the top leg is where the mind needs to be. So that the leg doesn't waver. Wavering is terribly effortful. We do this all the time. It's exhausting to live in duality. So we can use our practice just as a vehicle to say, well, maybe I can just keep that leg still for now. Irina, it's moved a little back on this side, top leg. Again, the lower leg, you might have a little bit more luck with this if the leg is slightly bent for today. Just a little, kind of like Virabhadrasana 1, right? And then you can see, well, once you've got your top leg in this stable state, not fixed, but stable state, then maybe see what happens if you straighten your other leg. And then maintaining the top leg. Now, how about when you take the leg up? Does the top leg move away from you or does it move towards? And can you keep it stable? Yeah. And it's worth waiting for. So that when you come up back into Savangasana, there is, in certain ways, a balance. Front of the body long, back of the body long. Irene, pull the buttocks way in. Way in. Okay, and then from here, carefully release and come on down. Rest just come on down and rest for a moment, and then you can roll over to your side. And make sure that you have with you a blanket, a block, a bolster. And what I would recommend is that you take your blanket and place it over your mat. Right? Take a blanket and place it over your mat. Okay. All right, and then when you're ready, you take the legs back to Upavista Konasana and just make sure that you have your block close by. If you can, for now, take this pose without any support underneath the hips and buttocks, do that. If you feel that you're getting a catch in your hip, then raise yourself up on a couple of blankets. All right, and then you'll extend your legs out have a block close by, and just take a moment with your hands behind just to, again, observe this decentralized position where the thighs are able to settle, right? Where the thighs are able to settle. And it's just over an hour since you did this pose. And the subtle quality of the thighs, again, it's not that there's no effort, but that you can feel that this understanding of your groins and the extension of your inner legs has a certain alertness to it now. And that if you had those two belts right at the roots of the inner groins, they'd be pulling ever so slightly back. Not enough to throw your shoulders forwards or your front ribs forwards, but just enough to allow for there to be this quietness into the groins. And then press your hands down, lift your chest up, collarbones broad. And start to get rid of the space between the backs of your legs and the blanket. Now, watch for a moment. You're going to take the block and it's going to be on the flattest position. And the corner of the block, one of the corners of the block is going to go at your inner left groin. Yeah. So it touches, right? And it's touching also a bit of your inner left thigh. And now, watch from here. I'm going to take my left wrist and place it, just on the block. So it kind of wedges it into the thigh. And then you're going to take Parshva Upavista, Uttita Parshva, which means upright twist. So press your left forearm wrist area into the block. And then stretch your inner legs away, particularly your inner left thigh to the inner left heel. And then on your exhalation, turn the left side of your waist towards your right big toe. And take a couple of exhalations to do this. And at the same time, the block is a reminder that the inner left leg has to continue to lengthen and extend. And then come back to the center, and then you'll take your block and place it at the root of your inner right groin, along the inner right thigh. Right wrist comes to the block, and then you can bring your left hand behind. Now the block, as I said, is a reminder. So you do have to push a little bit with your right hand. And then on your inhalation, lift. On your exhalation, turn. And as you turn from the right side of your waist. See if you can move from the waistband around. And the ribs will turn and the chest will turn. But exhale and rotate and turn. And see that, again, the block is a reminder. Can the extension of your inner right leg be ongoing? And then from here, come back to the center. We're going to do the first side again. This one requires more understanding of the contact of your skin or your pants. It's kind of got surprisingly warm here, and the block. And, it's one of the things that the skin, is the biggest organ of the body. And Gita would say that the skin is your guru, right? The skin is your guru. And so the touch point of the skin or your shorts or whatever on the block is key here. Because when you take this pose again, there's nothing to see, but I'm just going to talk you through it for a moment. When you get to turn the left side waist around and extend the inner left leg, can you not push your groin into the block? Because when we turn, the inner groin actually pushes into the block. And so you want to see when you can feel it, and it's just a feeling, can you resist there? Can you resist? And instead release and relax the groin. Almost as if it's kind of moving a little bit away from the block rather than pushing into the block. And so take the block again onto the left groin, right at the root of the groin, along the inner thigh. Both inner legs extend away, and then from here you get to rotate and turn. And almost immediately, can you feel the groin pushing into the block? Like that you can feel that skin or flesh contact with the hard surface of the block. So turn the left ribs around, turn the left waist around, extend your inner left leg to the left. But can you just allow for the groin to release a little bit? Like to not have that kind of pushing or striving. Just soften through the groin and let it release. And if you had the belt there, it would actually be a little bit helpful in this. We're not going to put the belt on, but just allow for some softness to be there as you turn. All right, and then from here, come to the center. And then you'll take the block over to the right side. And then once again, you turn your right side waist around to the left big toe. And observe on this side, is it different? Because you may have one side today that has featured again and again and again, either with a turn of your belt or with a turn of your hand or with observing it in shoulder stands, right? Observing it in these Ekapada, Supta Padangusthasana poses. That one of your groins doesn't have that kind of range of motion. It doesn't move so freely. It doesn't respond. In certain ways, it can be in a constant state of reactivity. And the tightness in the groins features into all kinds of sacral back issues, right? That's where it goes. So becoming aware, can you, as you turn and feel, is your groin pushing into the block here? And can you just let it release a little bit? Just let it soften so that there's less and less reactivity and more alert passivity. And then from here, come on all the way back to the center. Okay. And then just release it from the block, bring your legs together. Now, we're going to take this pose really high now. So take a bolster, and you may need your block, right? You may need your block, but take a bolster. And now you get to you're going to sit pretty much in the middle of your bolster, maybe a little to the back edge, but certainly in the middle. And then you're going to take the legs out straight to the side. Now, the only reason you might need a block is for your hand, because we're going to take the pose again, right? We're actually turning to the right side first. So you're going to stretch your heels away. Yeah, that's it. Okay, and then bring your left hand to the front of the bolster, and as you turn the right side waist around, can you just let this left groin again release? It's not push down into the bolster, but can you let it release away towards the inner heel? I just soften away towards the inner heel, turning your left side waist towards your right big toe, and then from here come back to the center. If you're using a block, of course you'd move it and then take your other side. But notice again if the groin reacts, right? If it wants to push down into the bolster or come with you when you turn. It's a different props giving different information. Release the groin away, like release it away towards the inner heel, and then turn and turn and turn. Pulling the right side of the waist around towards your left big toe. Exhale and turn. And can you release the groin from there? Like soften the groin from there. Okay, and then from here, come back to the center. So I was playing around with this morning, and I thought, oh, well, I know. I can go from Parshva Upavista Konasana to Hanumanasana. And so I'm going to show some various modifications of how I would do this. And if you can do Hanumanasana with a bolster, then you can stay with this. And as I said, I'm going to give different variations here. But we're going to start off with the turn, right, to the right side, and this release of the groin. And then from here, it's like, oh, well, actually, I can just lift myself up and take my bolster over the front thigh, the front of the back leg thigh. But I still have to be moving the groin, right, now upwards and also away, upwards and away. If I had the belt, it would be doing this. And then from here, eventually, I can stretch both legs straight, right? Again, working just for the kneecap. And the waist turns around. So it's a little bit of a movement, but it's not so much because you're kind of leading again with the groin, leading with your waist to come to here, okay? And so try that first. Kim, repeat this one, right? Repeat this, because this is really good for you. Do you feel this is really good? This is really helpful for the groins. If Hanumanasana is it's one of the, it really is, if there was a yoga, a god for asana, it would be Hanuman, right? So one of the ways that I like to practice this is, if you're not doing it from the bolster, is to bring yourself to your wall or close to a wall. You actually don't really need a wall, but you could try. And you see how I've got my left thigh releasing down, and the groin, again, I'm really working from the groin, and I'm going to bring my front foot onto the wall. You see I've got it on the pillar here. So this leg is my top leg in Supta Padangusthasana 1. And then from here,
then I can see, can I work to lift the groin and stretch the back leg straight any amount, right? So you can be almost in this kind of position. So the chair is really useful, right? You don't come into it the same way. You would sit with the right sit bone on the chair and you kind of let the left side hang off the back. But otherwise, just, it is a playful pose. And even though it's considered an advanced pose, there's so many ways of doing it, that it's just worth having a go, right? It's really worth having a go. So again,
how important is it to get the back leg straight?
Don't worry about it.
Oh,
Don't worry about it. But make sure that you do, if you're going from Parshva, right? If you're going from Parshva, Upavista, it leads into it. It's almost like a natural flow, if you see what I mean. So I'm going from a Parshva, Upavista into Hanumanasana. And it's harder to keep the legs straight when you're up on a bolster. It just it's a deeper stretch. It's basically upward facing dog, right? So you get to turn, right? You get to turn to your right, and then the groin just follows, like you just follow it around. The whole pose is led by the inner groin, and then the inner legs extend away from each other. If you're able to straighten the back knee, then it lifts up just like upward dog. You press the foot down, and then you lift upwards from the quadriceps, so the back leg is straight. And then you can come on back to the center. And then when you take your other side, again, the movement of the groin and the movement of the waist are together, right? So that you just come over, and then here you are. And the bolster is to support the back leg thigh, right? The back leg thigh. You can have your hands on the bolster, you can have your hands on blocks or even on the wall. Okay, so this is Virabhadrasana 1, right? Or Supta Padangusthasana 1. So go ahead, yeah, that's it. And the bolster is a really wonderful, wonderful prop for this. Irene, use the chair if it's hard to straighten your legs, right? And you remember how I use the chair? Okay, there we go. Now, when you're in the pose, whatever side, turn the waist around. When you turn the groin, turn the waist. When you turn the groin, turn the waist. That's it. And then the inner legs extend away from each other. Yeah, you're flying here. Now back ribs in, chest up. Beautiful. Okay, and then from here you come on back, right? Have you done both sides? Everyone's done both sides. You're going to do a total of 3 of these, and you can either stay on the bolster, because what I liked about this is that it's round and you can kind of move with the general direction of the pose. But some of you have, you can go deeper into the pose. So, here I am in my Parshva Upavista. Again, I've got the block at the left groin. And then from here, I would come up and I could use the block on the root of the back leg thigh, right? So it's a little bit lower, but I still work to rotate the groin and extend the inner legs away. And again, the back leg can straighten as need be. As I mentioned, straightening the back leg is harder when you have a support. If you're able to do it without support, then the leg straightens because it's on the floor, right? So I wouldn't worry about it too much, but you could be here, right? And then if you're there, you can stretch up, okay? So let's take so either stay on the bolster, use a block, or come to the floor, right? Just do a total of 3 of these, and see how it goes. And the toes of the back foot extend away, right? The toes of the back foot are upward facing dog. Now, Lila, move your back groin more, right? The right groin, turn it from inner to outer. See if you can get your 4th toe of your back foot onto the floor. Yes, do you see how that's, yeah, there you go. Then you can really steer the leg from there. Yes, and then the inner legs extend away from each other. Beautiful. Excellent. And now, Elizabeth, make sure that the back groin, don't worry about straightening the leg, but do take your left hand to the inner groin there and turn it. Yes, exactly like that. Do you feel? Yeah, there we go. Then the leg straightens, but that's the key element. And then you can turn the left side waist around as you turn the groin, right? The left side waist turns as you turn the groin. So it's just a different way of coming into the pose from Parshva Upavista. It kind of lends itself to you just keep turning. Irene, is that working okay? Looks good. The chair's a wonderful prop. It's certainly not an easier prop. Right? It's just a different one, right? It's just a different one. Okay. And then if you have, and I'm going to call it just, you know, you're finishing up, when you get to your last run through, can you take your mind to that passive alertness, right? Of this tata dvandva anabhigataha. Hanuman is about the extension of both legs, right? Hanuman is this extraordinary leap that was done, right? Mythologically speaking. And so it was as important when you leap, right? It's as important for the front leg to come forwards, but the balance comes from the back leg, right? So both have to be an extension. And the perfection in asana is certainly not the photographic, you know, moment. The perfection in the asana is achieved when the duality ceases to exist, right? That's just it. When the duality ceases to exist. Okay, so finish off your last one, and then you can come on out. And the pose to finish this one in is Supta Padangusthasana to the side. Okay, so you can take your belt or you can hold onto your big toe, and I'm just going to show so that you can see here. You would take your leg up, and I'm not using a belt, but you reach out to the side. And again, the groins release, right? This is a groin releasing pose. Inner groins down as the inner legs extend away. And you don't have to hold this for very long, just a couple of seconds on each side. And you can use a belt over the ball mat of the foot, or you can just hold on to your big toe, okay? This can also be done with the support of a block underneath or a blanket underneath the outer hip. So Supta Padangusthasana, leg to the side. Yeah. And then push the inner legs away from each other. There's a balance here too, right? We don't want to roll off the left buttock. We don't want to roll off the left hip. So the left leg has to continue its extension. And then the sit bones release away from each other. Straighten the leg, Irene. Both legs straight. Straighten the leg. Again, imagine you've got your thumb just above your kneecap. Yeah, don't use your thumb to do it. Just use your memory to do it. All right, and then inhale and come on up, and then take your other side. Yeah, always in between, lift the buttocks. Those of you with back issues, for all of us, you lift the buttocks and you lengthen the buttocks towards your heels, just to organize the pelvis. Now, Lila, the leg doesn't go so high up. Move it further to the side, towards the bed. Yeah, there we go. So the arm is straight, yeah. There is another pose like that, but it's really different because the foot comes close to the ear, but we're not going to do that one today. So watch that you don't roll off your right hip, right? Watch that the right thigh extends downwards again. Otherwise, we're living in duality again. Okay. Carolyn, the left leg is right leg is too close to your ear. Yeah, it's much further to the side. Okay, and then from here, inhale and come on up. Roll to your side for a second, just before we're going to settle into a couple of minutes. But just watch. Everyone's got so much openness in their groins, right? It was interesting to see. In fact, I'll turn this way, the light's a bit better. That some of you are taking the pose all the way up to here. There is a really wacky pose, right, where you actually bring your foot to the floor and then you have to stretch the leg out straight. But we're not doing that one. Supta Padangusthasana 2, right? The duality is to be, I have to stay here and I have to extend here. So I'm trying to, again, be in that place of effortless effort. So it's not here with the leg, right, but much more extended out to the side. All right, so let's just do it one more time, just very quickly out to the side. If you can, take hold of the outer edge of your foot, right? If you can reach that far. If you've got a belt, you use your belt. If you've got hold of your big toe, then you can reach and hold the little toe side of the foot. That will give you a different kind of balance. Yeah. And again, watch again that the leg to the side, right? That quadricep has to push away. Again, we're seeking to settle the thighs. All right, and then inhale and come on up. And then last time, lift the buttocks, push the buttocks away, and then take your second side. Yeah, holding on to the outer edge of the foot. And for those of you who have, who pull the leg quite high up, this restricts that, because you just push the thigh away. You keep pushing the thigh away, the lateral thigh. That's it. Spreading the sit bones away from each other and seeing again that you didn't roll off your horizontal thigh. Okay, and then from here, inhale and come on all the way up. All right, and release. Okay. Now, for Shavasana, we're at the end of the class now, so some of you may have to go, but if you can, by the way, it would be fine to leave right now if you need to. But if you can stay a few moments longer, you're going to take your blanket or a blanket. I'm going to actually use this one because it will show better. And you see I've got it open really quite wide and quite long, and I hold the folded side and just kind of make a little spinning tail, right? So I've got a very narrow edge. I'm just spinning it around and holding it on one corner, right? So I just spin it around, and then this is going to go at the top of the sacrum. I'm just taking the other blanket, and that can be for my head, right? So, but I have to arrange this tiny little point to go between the two buttock bones right up to the top of the sacrum, right? So it's up, if you can just look here, it's all the way up to here, right? It's all the way up to here. And then you can lie back so that the buttock bones are slightly separated. And then you can put the blanket underneath your head and make sure you cover yourself if you're cold. Okay? The narrower the point, the more specific it will be. Completely let go of your legs and your arms. This tiny little blanket support underneath the sacrum, tailbone, gives a little bit more space again to the groins, so that you can release in between your two sit bones and completely relax your inner legs. The practitioner can be considered firm in the posture when persevering effort is no longer needed. And in this stability, the physiology of each asana is understood. And the knowledge penetrates within, reaching the minutest parts of the body. And then a simultaneous relaxation, firmness, and extension comes. And it is in this way that the practitioner develops a sensitive mind. In yoga, we are on a razor's edge. And in asana, perfection can only be attained through perseverance, alertness, and insight. The effect of asana eventually is to put an end to the dualities or differentiation between the body, the mind, and the soul. And when we are in this state of balance, in this exalted position, he writes,
the root of dualistic perception is lost and ceases to disturb us. There is no longer joy or sorrow, heat or cold, honor or dishonor, pain or pleasure. There is freedom and perfection in action. Bend your elbows now and let your hands rest somewhere on your torso that gives comfort to you. Bend your legs now, one at a time, and just carefully roll off the support. It's not much, but it's enough. And then roll over to your right side. Take a couple of breaths. And you can lift your head last of all as you come on all the way up to sit. Namaste. Thank you for coming today, everyone. I'll see you soon.